begin by celebrating the presence, your presence, Father, Mother, God, in and through each and every one of us. Father, Mother, God, not only do we celebrate that presence, we know and affirm that that presence is always loving. It's peaceful, it's joyous. That's what we're here to be. That's what we're here to celebrate. That's what we're here to bring to one another. We give thanks for this beautiful gathering and that each person here is able to add to that presence of light. Father, Mother, God, guide our every thought, word, and deed, every song, every smile, every hug, every sharing. Guide us in the potlucks, guide us in the friendship, guide us in what we design outside in our landscape. Father, Mother, God, in other words, let this be, each of us and this place that we share, heaven on earth. And we give thanks that we make another giant stride toward that today. And so it is.
And now our statement of being. This is found on the front page of the brochure for newcomers. This is the one that begins with, "There is only one presence." Together, there is only one presence, one power, and one activity in my life, God the good, omnipotent. And now the daily word. Divine order. I am in the right place at the right time. I greet this day with gratitude for my life, now and in the past, with anticipation of the wonders to come. Every day of my life is part of my spiritual journey, and I am thankful for each new experience. In silent contemplation, I become aware of the power within that guides me. My heart opens to the wisdom of God and the perfect order unfolding in my life. Each person I meet, each decision I make, each opportunity I encounter is in divine order. I embrace every development as a gift and move forward with confidence. Right here, right now, is the perfect place for me. I complete what is mine to do and grow into my full potential through the divine order at work in my life. And from 1 Corinthians 13:12, now I know only in part, then I will know fully, even as I have been known fully. Now we have A Course in Miracles.
Hi. You are the means for God, not separate, nor with a life apart from His. His life is manifest in you who are His child. Each aspect of Himself is framed in holiness and perfect purity. In love celestial and so complete, it wishes that it may release all it looks upon unto itself. Its radiance shines through each body that it looks upon and brushes all its darkness into light merely by looking past it to the light. The veil is lifted through its gentleness, and nothing hides the face of Christ from its beholders. You and your brothers and sisters stand before Him now to let Him draw aside the veil that seems to keep you separate and apart. There is a masterpiece that God has set within a frame. The body holds it for a while, yet what God has created needs no frame. His masterpiece He offers you to see. What God creates is safe from all corruption, unchanged, and perfect in eternity.
And now sit back and enjoy this special music.
Cool, huh? And then there's folks going, all this joy has no place in a church. I'm sorry, we'll never do it again. Or maybe we will. Majority rules. Woo! So, nice, huh? It's celebrating, man. Sometimes it's a time for celebration. Other times the solemn, the deep, the beautiful work, all kinds of forms. Sometimes, man, it's about celebrating. And that's an affirmation. That song was written with a chant at the end. Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be. It's a chant. Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be. Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be. Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be. Perfect, right? It's just beautiful. That's the light that was coming through that particular band, Earth, Wind, and Fire. Yeah, Earth, Wind, Fire. They didn't have water in the name because there were no water signs in any members of the band. In case you wanted to know that. So, beautiful. And this was a band that was into anchoring in light. And I love to honor people when they've worked so hard to anchor in light. And today we're talking about, and the reason that song was chosen, we're talking about the self, the real self. We've talked in several services about God, and always will, always have, and it'll always be about that nurturance of the relationship with Spirit, a closer walk with Spirit. But in this case, there are three relationships we can have. One with God, one with self, one with others. And they need to be in that order, they need to be in that priority. All is beginning and ending in God, so that's the first relationship. And that's why we talk about that in some way, shape, or form every Sunday, and in between Sundays. The relationship with self is the one we're going to focus on today. And that comes before the relationship with others because our relationship with others is actually just a reflection of how we're doing with our relationship with God and self. It's actually just a reflection of how we're doing on the other relationships. So what human beings typically do is not have a relationship with God, have only a messed up or vague one with themselves, and then try to go out to others to make up for it. We try to live vicariously through others, our spiritual and a personal relationship, and they're just doomed. These people have no chance. You know, they're just all up creek. And there's another way of doing this. Imagine flipping it and God, self intact, and bringing that as a gift to others. Oh, how different that is, you know, and the not coming with needs, not coming with wounds to dump on other people, or the needs to grasp and pull other people in. Oh, what a different relationship we have, right? Walking in, this is what we're all really looking for. We're thinking peace comes from the outside, but we nurture it. Together and alone, we nurture it inside. The relationship with God and self. The relationship with God is nurtured how? Well, we've talked about it so many times. Prayer and meditation, and love, 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 love. The relationship with self comes from that first relationship being intact, meaning prayer, meditation, love, love, love. But also, healthy sense of self, which means self-healing, and healthy boundaries. That's what the healthy self looks like. If you do not make it a part of your life to do self-healing, how could you ever be healthy? You have to do, and it's a maintenance program. You don't do it once. You don't say, well, I did some self-healing about 12 years ago, and I'm good now. It's an ongoing maintenance program. And if you think you're done, there's always new people to bring new issues up for you. So, I mean, you might as well stay with the trend of change. Oh, new issues, new self-worth tactics, new self-healing, you see. So we morph with the times, right? So it's the outer world reflects the love, as you feel here today, for example, and in so many areas of your life, and or the lack of love. There are these opportunities to learn and grow, and they're not always just your issues. It doesn't mean something's going on in the world, it's just by yourself, your issues. Because we also share a collective consciousness. So sometimes the issues of the world, or our community, or whatever, are mirroring things we as a community have to cleanse and purify, self-heal, and set new boundaries with. That's how, however, that's how we become healthier with ourselves. We have to nurture a relationship with ourselves. If we never go inside and have a conversation with ourselves, meaning, hey, what's that about? I notice you get impatient when such and such happens. I notice you become afraid when such and you become reactive when such and such. We have to learn why. Ask. And instead people immediately go to the outside. To credit and hope that somebody's going to bring them something good in their lives, or to blame for the bads. Inside. It doesn't mean you won't still have practical things to deal with on the outside, practical measures to take. Oh, look at that. I have a flat tire. Well, sure, you can track that and look a little bit about, well, and if I've had 3 this month, I should probably get the hint. Something's going on. Yeah, I agree. Something's, and it's frustrating, isn't it, when you have a flat tire? He's just venting. He's just venting. But we learn and we see it's coming up a few times. I guess I got to do some looking at that. Why is my car doing this over and over and so on? You check it out and then you set healthy boundaries. Like I won't drive on certain roads again because I tend to get flat tires there. Those are just commonsensical, healthy boundaries. If you lend your car out to somebody who keeps coming back with a flat tire, I guess I might not lend it to them again. I don't know. To each their own. But healthy boundaries do stem from those lessons learned. And it's, you know, it's interesting because of how much the world reflects where we're at, and we don't have a conversation regularly with ourselves. It's bad enough to not have a conversation with your partners. How do you expect to know them when you don't talk to them? Well, it's the same with yourself. How do you have a healthy relationship with yourself without dialogue inside? And if you choose not to do so, I promise you, you're not healthy for others. Yes. Can I hear an amen? Yeah. He's even applauding himself. This kid's in touch with who he is. I am the Christ. Yes. Wow. It's a funny thing because even Jesus took time to ask his apostles, by the way, who do you guys think I am? Now, did he ask that because he wasn't sure? Oh, I'm just really down on the self-worth today. Please tell me I'm wonderful. Oh, you're the Christ. Oh, just for that, you get to be the cornerstone of my church, Peter. Oh, you know, that's not what was happening. That's not what was happening. Why did he ask then if he already knew? He asked so that they could watch percolate up inside themselves. They could see what their dialogue was, what they thought. Who do you say I am? And they could all witness their own reactions, their own responses, and own it. Some of them were nervous, which means they get to now see how nervous they are about what's happening in their lives. I think you're probably a pretty good healer. See, Jesus wasn't affected by that answer, but they had to now see their nervousness about owning who he was. You see? So sometimes asking such questions helps us kind of, you know, I mentioned in the earlier service, sometimes people say, Michael, what sign are you? I say, what sign do you think I am? Because in asking them, it'll tell me what they think of me. Yeah. And I'll say, oh, good, yes, yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'll go with that one. And sometimes oh, you know, an Aquarius, he's such a humanitarian, you must be an Aquarius. Absolutely, thank you. It's not important. John of God, Peace Pilgrim, Michael Mirdad, some of us just say it's not important to tell you what sign. Because what matters most is what do you think I am, or what do you think they are, and why? You see? Ask yourself what that's about. Although there is a funny thing, this is just an aside. I do believe in astrology. I do believe in all the arts. I do believe they have a place. I'm just talking about not pigeonholing, and certainly not letting others pigeonhole. It's you were the Christ, the embodiment of all these signs. But I do dig, you know, the metaphysics, and I love there's a car company that's talking about, supposedly they had this major plan to put out an astrological line of cars, and I'm like, cool. I mean, this is just, you know. But this whole plan went down the tubes, you know, and they had to recall a bunch of these, like the Aries they were creating, the Aries, and it had acceleration problems. Anyway, what? And the Scorpio only came with a back seat. I'm just telling you what happened. You know what's weird though? The Pisces, when you tried to steer it left, it would always go right. Pisces, you can't control them. And don't even get me started on the Libra. They won't stay on the road. Anyway. Do them all. Oh no. So the same happens with A Course in Miracles. You ask people, what do you think about A Course in Miracles? You're never getting what the Course in Miracles is about. You're getting a perception. You're just getting, always just getting perceptions. So what do you think of the Course? Some people, it's too Eastern. Somebody else goes, it's too Western. How could it be both? Because it's not true. It's just perceptions. Someone has issues with, sexism and racism and this and that. They're going to read in whatever. If somebody's got a real raw issue about men, they don't like A Course in Miracles because it uses a pronoun he for God. Then call it it. Try that one. See if that flows poetically as you read. And it loves me. I think it's going to miss some of the vibe that was there. So anyway. Now, this real self, we must nurture this real self. And this real self not only needs to be nurtured and done with the first relationship with God. How can you nurture it without God if it's God that you're nurturing? So it comes through the nurturance of the first relationship. That's like these upper chakras shining brightly. And one thing it looks like is the Christ living in us. The Christ presence. Wow. All of a sudden I live and I think, and I do my best because we'll slip. But we would do our best to live that Christ principle. Kind of the way we speak, the way we think, and prayerfully so. We're living that presence. And that presence is going to then be chosen to descend down into our hearts. And I'm going to use the metaphors of the chakras. Just a metaphor of the chakras. Imagine that divine presence being called into each part of my being. So I choose to live it in the Christ sense, the knowing who I really am. And you know what's amazing is that means I'm going to love the Christ in me, will love my Christ self. But even the parts of me that are wounded and broken, the Christ in me will also do its best to be compassionate towards those parts. Not because it believes in being patient forever with those broken parts. It's because it knows they don't exist. It knows it's not the real you. And we have to get that distinction because some of us will believe in that the God or Christ within us will just enable in us or in other people the constant, ego self. It's not what it does. It's not just about, be patient, we're supposed to be loving and compassionate. If we really understand God, love, compassion, it would mean we're recognizing these things aren't real, therefore sometimes not even needing to be tolerated because they're not real. That's why Jesus could say no sometimes. Not, well, I guess we want to be loving after all. It's no, not today. He sometimes told his apostles no, told the Pharisees no, told other people no. And when you're that clear about what you're, who you are, it's kind of bizarre. I mean, people aren't used to that. It can be a bit intimidating. But it's who we really are, and we're nurturing that presence. How much you've nurtured it or choose to nurture it on a daily basis can't be called right or wrong. You're just going to do the best you can. But it is our destiny, so you're going to get there eventually. So why not just more and sooner than later? That presence descends into our hearts. That's where we drop into our hearts and we hold presence, love, compassion, all the attributes of the heart. The saying, performing random acts of kindness, that has to come from your heart. Or they're not at all true kindness. So, attributes of the heart. If we are ever going to say, God is speaking to me and I really am an open-hearted person and I believe in being balanced. Don't just be heart-centered, but balanced. That's true mastery. That's the Christ in heaven, on earth. It's balance. So the heart looks like what? It looks like this. First of all, you would understand that everything is one. That means instead of saying, judge not or you shall be judged, or quotes about judgment, you understand that it's impossible to judge another without immediately judging yourself because we're all the same. We're all connected. We're all one. So you don't just spout words like oneness. You actually would understand how beautifully we are all connected, beautifully all one. And as soon as I begin to spout a judgment, I'm condemning myself. And in releasing others, I'm released. Another attribute of the heart, because the heart sits right between the Trinity of God in our being and the Trinity of the ego or humanness in our being. It sits right between these. So balance is an attribute of the heart. Finding a delicate balance to bring in the heavenly energies, but grounding them. Grounding them. How can I do these things on a practical level? Whether it's putting air in the tires or whatever, that's the practical stuff. And I've said recently, you know, I really am praising the board of trustees you all have here, because the board is really constantly walking that beautiful line between the two. Stay spiritual, stay inspired, and yet we have decisions to make, whether it's how many chairs are in this room or whatever else. There's practical decisions, and we all have to learn to do that. To be our true selves, we have to know how to walk in balance. It's inevitable. And there's a beautiful part of the scriptures that tell us, wherever your treasure is, there will your heart be also. We're talking heart chakra today. And that means anything that weighs upon your heart, whatever takes up the most time in your thoughts and your imaginings, is now your treasure. It means that's what you are invested in. And people will always protect their treasures. So if my heart is constantly thinking about something wonderful, then I'm good with it. It's beautiful. That's what I value. And if it's constantly obsessing or thinking about something negative, it's a treasure as well. And I will fight to protect those misthoughts within my heart and soul. And the heart is also imagination. That's why I said your thoughts and imaginings. The heart and the treasure. These are the things we value. Not just what you speak about, what you truly value in the core of your being. In ancient Egypt, one of the ceremonies, one of the standard rituals or customs was, at the end of one's life, your heart would be taken out of the body and weighed on a scale against a feather. If it was heavier than the feather, that means enjoy your next life. Good luck. Your heart had to be lighter than a feather to ascend. What does that tell us? Well, the weight of the world on our hearts, our judgments, our misbeliefs. See? It's the whole weight, the whole idea of the weight in our hearts. If you see yourself as a dense person, you now have weight in your heart. If you see yourself as a truly spiritual person, that's the only way to ascend. You see? It's not just the thoughts and consciousness, behaviors as well. If we truly understand who we are, we would walk into that room to have ourselves judged, quote unquote, on the scales, and you would come out as light. But not if you're a human trying to justify your behaviors or your thoughts or your whatever, because then you're still thinking of yourself as a human. So if you're human, you have a heart, and it has weight and density, and you'll fail the test again. Is that making sense? You have to not be the limited human self to pass the test. And I think that's one of the best metaphors we could ever imagine about the afterlife. It's not talking about a being judging us. Your own heart. How is that anything shy but being responsibility? It's just perfect. Your heart, your issues, your soul. How you doing? And it goes on the scale. If we were looking at the mind, if we were descending down the chakras, and I want to be my true self, how does the true self look in the heart? Oneness, love, forgiveness, joy, celebrate. You can't say your heart chakra is happening if you can't feel the presence of love, peace, and joy. Think about this, that Jesus says you must be as a child before you enter the kingdom. So if the you he's talking about is the human you, and that's depicted as your lower chakras, he's saying you must become as a child, which is upward on the way to heaven in the upper three chakras. You have to go through the heart. You, human, must be as a child in your heart before you can reach the kingdom. And that child plays. That child is spontaneous. They ask in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus, how do we get to the kingdom? When will we know if we're close to the kingdom? He says, when you can stand up, drop your clothes to the ground like a child and just stomp them in laughter, you'll know you're close. And I'm not asking any of you to do that. Okay? Because then we'll soon find the others that are far from the kingdom. Okay? That won't like what you're doing. But that's what he said, and it's a metaphor. It's the carefree. God, imagine to have that state of mind where you don't notice the wrongs. That it's just laughter. Yeah. So we descend into our minds. We drop down into our minds, and the Pharisees are depicted as being some of that mindset in the Gospels, the New Testament anyway, because Jesus is saying, the Pharisees, you don't understand what I'm saying. You're getting mad at what I'm saying because My words do not find a place in your hearts. It's not there. You're not open to this. Because they had dropped to the mind, the lower mind, which is they have bitten from the tree of judgment, knowledge of good and evil. That means that they went to a place where their thinking kicks in instead of feeling, being. They kicked into thinking, so they kept finding fault with everything. One day he's walking with his apostles through a field. They're hungry and they start taking some grain and eating it. And the Pharisees quickly pounce on this because they trying to find fault constantly, which is what our intellectual minds do to our souls constantly. So the Pharisees pounce on it and say, this is wrong, you're breaking the laws, you're breaking the rules. He says, wait a second. Didn't your own King David, that you admire and love, didn't he not come back from war once, find that him and his men were hungry and they kicked down the storehouses, went in and took all the grains and ate? Sometimes things are just right. Stop overthinking them and judging them. Puts them in their place. Pharisees, it's not them, it's any part of us that bites from that tree of judgment. Is that making sense? Okay. The Pharisees couldn't get the words of Christ because they weren't being in the Christ self. The propensity is just too strong. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. It's that human self that has to just go that place and tear down that which is potentially going to ascend in each of us. And that's not even it. That's just the level of the mind. We have another level. What do you do if you're bringing in the real self? How does that look emotionally? Well, try to bring it through, and there's so much history, so much emotional garbage, baggage, wounds and limitations and hurts. And if we're not having a relationship, if we do not have a vivid sense of how to navigate the emotional waters, you can't be the Christ self. The mind will tear you down, the emotions will sink you. They'll pull you into the hurts. And not that you'll see it, but it's just it's just a compulsion. If we forget who we are, which is our main theme today, who are we? And how do we bring it through? Not in theory, in reality, in heart, mind, emotions, and body. How do we bring it through? You've got to learn to navigate those waters. Do your counseling, your breath work, and whatever, and get into it. Having a relationship with the emotional self. So you know why you do this and why you do that. We know why we react this way or that way, and how amazing that becomes. You're a healthier person for yourself and others. So the emotional place tells us from whence these reactions come. Imagine just the evolution of that. Where do the addictions come from? Well, it's genetic. No. It might be added to genetically. Why you? Why now? Why do you have an addiction to this or that or the other? There's a place. And I said in the earlier service, and I certainly don't mean any disrespect by it, but if you're in a, people spout all kinds of lofty things and call themselves spiritual, but it's so easy to say these things and be hypocritical. I have more respect for somebody who's truly practicing a 12-step program. And they're not calling themselves spiritual masters. They're just merely doing a program that they think they need. And I respect that far more than people that spout the words and are hypocrites. If you're truly practicing simple 12-step program, it's not professing to be anything grandiose. There's no ministers of, no leaders per se. But you know what they're doing right? God is a priority. They go inside and find out what makes them tick and why they do what they do. And then they bring the changes in them to the world. That's their program in 3 steps, narrow down from 12. That's what they're doing. That's admirable. Because it was never said, bumper sticker or words, practice random acts of kindness, was never practiced thinking about doing random acts of kindness. The practical, the doing. And that brings us to the actual, physical level. But remember the emotions, how easily they leak up. I shared a story in the first service, and I'll do it again. One time I was doing a workshop at a Unity church. And I was describing how sometimes when we're bringing our lives back together, when we want to start a new life, be resurrected and come forward and live a new life, one of the wonderful tools for doing that is visualizing that new life. Just one little part of what this workshop was about, but visualize that new life. So I was saying things like, visualize yourself, having some peace time, some quiet time. Maybe a beach. So visualize, you hear the waves, feel the crunch of the sand under your feet, the seagulls or whatever, making that vivid imagery. Then I got to relationship and I said, now visualize. And I said, could I borrow you for a second? There was a lady in the audience. I said, come here. Visualize that you actually are holding the hand of a partner, walking in a safe environment, and how wonderful the conversation is, and the safety, the sense of intelligence and spirituality between the two. Making it vivid, like you feel their hand in your hand. Make it vivid. They got it. After the workshop, that lady who I asked to come up came up and shared something. She said, oh my God, I got to share something with you. And I'm a bit intimidated, but I got to tell you about this. She said, when I came into the workshop today, she said, I noticed, like, I thought of you, and I saw you, and I thought, I found myself going, gosh, he's kind of good looking. And I'm not saying I am, she said that. So, so she said, and I found myself going, well, wow, that's, and then she takes that moment of nice, beautiful, just an observation of hers, and she went into her head. She turns her head and goes, oh, I see how there's a couple of volunteers over at his table, and they're nice looking. Yeah, it's typical, good-looking guys always have to have nice-looking girls, not like me, because she thinks of herself as, overweight or whatever her thing was. So she starts just spinning out in this whole story. Now she's tearing down something one moment she was admiring. No, she can't keep the love. Got to tear it down. So she tears it down. She goes into this whole story. There's a fireplace right behind you for that phone. So she goes right into tearing it down. And the poor girl didn't even stop there. I mean, she went on in this in her obsessive thoughts. The girls like me are never the ones. She said, and then when you went to demonstrate perfect relationship, you called on me. She was like looking behind her, like, what? How did I know to call on her? And that she was going through this whole experience, and that it brought a full healing. And I'm not even involved. See? So Spirit often does that for all of us. Guides us the right words and the right things. And it's not I'm out there, literally trying to mind read who's needing what. It's stay out of that. Your mind will never be able to keep up with everybody's thoughts. But it happens that somebody was calling out, and just this demonstration here, the walking a perfect relationship became this hope. It may sound silly or simple to you, but to this person, it was a whole new idea of hope that she for a moment was ripping out of her own grasp. And people will do that. The Pharisee, the mind will kick in and try to ruin what we have. Something else has to kick in and say no. So if we want to have the true selves lived in our lives, it involves welcoming into the heart the oneness, the love, the forgiveness, but it also welcomes in the ability to say no to the mind that tries to rip things apart. I'm not judging the mind as a negative, because once we take out and say no to its control tactics, it is basically then taken over by God. Because the mind that's led by God is a good mind. And the emotions got to navigate the waters and get rid of the stuff that controls us. And lastly, on a physical level, it's get up and go. It's to manifest the action of random acts of kindness. They are stemming from, they're not compulsive, they're not to show off. They're coming from, how can I not do this? Look, God, heart, mind, emotions, and action. How could I not help that person up that fell? Now how do I not compliment? How do I not know what a person needs at a given time? This is just how God should be looking in our lives on a day-to-day basis. There's so many examples of this, but the master is balanced. That's the easiest way to say it. Every part of my being should be guided by God. It's not just about being heart-centered, but heart and more. And the body included. Our finances should look great. Our health and vitality should look great. And when we hear the music, we should be able to, how could I not be dancing right now? This is the groove. This is what's happening in the moment. And as soon as the music started earlier, everybody's, starts moving and dancing and feeling it. So to me, it's like calling Lazarus out of the tomb. To me, it's like calling the lame to walk. Those healings are not just for people 2,000 years ago. It's us. The part of us that's been crippled by the ego needs to be told, stop, get up. Oh, but I can't get up. I'm crippled. Get up. And when you call other people to that, they will sometimes be a bit bothered. Sometimes they will be, annoyed or whatever, because you'll seem so, just confident and clear. To them, it'll seem controlling, but it's beautiful. It's arise. And look at in those days, how even the apostles said, hey, some of these people, they're sick. Just leave them sick. They're used to it. What great logic, huh? And Jesus is like, talk to the hand. Talk to the hand. Well, he didn't say that, but, he's like, get a life, get a life. No. He's saying, come on, how could you think such things? This is what we're here to do, is shine light. So there are times. There's a quote I'm going to share with you. Never waste your time trying to explain your thoughts and beliefs to those who are committed to misunderstanding you, nor trying to explain who you are to people who refuse to know you. Isn't that brilliant? It's in the newsletter that went out yesterday too. It's just a beautiful, perfect statement. Why waste time? Be who you are. And who are you? God, the expression of love. And anytime we forget that, it's going to lead to our challenges in life. Knowing who we are actually seems like a challenge and seems intimidating, but that's the thing that brings us the life we truly want. Forgetting causes us our problems. Forgetting who you are, but forgetting who I am. If I know who I am, I'll less often forget who you are. Because we're one, an attribute of the heart again. So I close with the concept in the Bible, and it's a controversial one. God is no respecter of man. Well, that's a bit harsh. That's kind of, ooh. God is no, I would rather have a God who respects man. What it means is God does not buy into your opinions of yourself, nor your opinions of other people. God does not respect your ego. Not because it sees itself as better than. God knows your ego isn't real. God is no respecter of illusions, of ego, and of our opinions of ourselves. And Jesus says in the Course in Miracles, you really must learn to ignore your opinions of others and of yourself, and other people's opinions of you. Stay out of it. Ask for God's opinion of you and live only by that. Oh, that's easily said. Thanks, Jesus, for another, Wow. But we've got to go and try to pull this off. Imagine living only from who we really are. There's a lot of pullings that'll try to do the other. If you're too centered, people say, oh, you think you're better than us because you're not reacting to such and such. If you're too loving, if you're too gentle, if you're too compassionate, the Pharisees of life are going to try to find fault with it. But it's our destiny. It's who we really are. This isn't you need to be more this, you need to be more that. It's who we really are. Let all else fall aside. But I'm also trying to convey practical measures. How to be more the true self in the heart. How to do so on a mind level. How to do so on an emotional level. How to do so even on a physical level. It is our destiny. A few centering breaths, please. Heavenly Father, Mother God, we recognize your presence as a holy light hovering above our heads. And we see that light and know that that light is perfect love, peace, joy, and abundance. That light is holiness. There is no part that's tainted in that light. That light is also the answer to every prayer, and it's the perfect presence of miracle making. And it's as close as being that light just over our heads. And every prayer and everything we ever try to do on planet Earth is really trying to grab hold of that presence. We may not recognize that's what we're really looking for, but it's only God we really want. Every relationship was concealing an attempt to find love or God. Every new job to bring us more prosperity or greater prosperity was actually concealing a longing for God in the form of prosperity. Everything was always really about God, but sometimes misguided or limited versions. In this moment, we settle no more. We choose to call your presence, and we begin first by letting it pour into our head, filling the head and neck region, filling and activating the upper 3 chakras in the body. The presence of God. It was said the kingdom of heaven is within you. We believe it today, and we see it and feel it. And we're choosing to invite this also down into our hearts. However, we have to first give something up so that the weight of our heart isn't greater than that of a feather. So whatever may be in our hearts, Father, Mother, God, even unknown to us, and if it be known, it can pop into our minds. But even if unknown, Father, Mother, God, anything in our hearts that would be standing between experiencing your presence as love, compassion, joy, spontaneity, and creativity, we surrender that thing now. Breathe it out. Let it be lifted up and out, purified in the heavens. And the organic response would be, now we've made room, the flood waters can now pour in deeper. They come down to our heart. God's presence naturally pours down when we've made room and got out of the way. Bask and feel that. This is what I should be feeling regularly. More love. Show me, Father, Mother, God. Show me what I would naturally feel in my heart if I feel your presence. Love, playfulness, laughter, joy. And I choose this to come further down now into my mind. Let's symbolize this in the solar plexus. My mind, but I need to surrender my thoughts. The parts of me that think I know. Left, right, up, down, rights and wrongs. I choose to surrender back the fruits from the tree of judgment. I know not. I'm giving it to you, God. I do not know my own best interests. I do not know what's right or best for me or anyone else. And in saying I don't know, God, you can now guide me such. I lift this out. I just breathe this out, my will, and I allow it to surrender to thine will, which now pours down into our mind. The emotional center, let's say, in the navel center. That light is ready to pour down and fill us through that center, but we first choose to give up, even unbeknownst to us, emotional issues. Family issues, wounds, childhood issues, relationship issues. Lifted up, being surrendered. Clearing. No longer compulsions, addictions, wounds, hurts that otherwise would have been controlling our every inspired and not so inspired actions. This would have corrupted them, but no, surrendering that up today. And the flood waters just pour down into our navel center. The presence of God alive and well in my emotional self, which means new relationships, healthier boundaries, healthier self. Healthier emotions. I start to feel more excitement, healthy types of excitement, and happiness, real happiness. Because God is in me emotionally. My emotions are not reflecting a person who's hurting, struggling, wounded, or arrogant. God's presence. And then the physical center. all of my lack and misunderstanding on a physical level, that would be my finances, health, vitality, stop today, no more. And let it be lifted up and out. Our concepts of the root center, our physical selves. I am not a body, I am free, for I remain as God created me. Lift it up and out. Then who am I, God? I know that I'm a spiritual being, but I seem to have a body. How would my physical life look and be if filled with your presence? And let it pour down and fill it. And it becomes greater prosperity, more health, vitality. And we become excited because we can now look back and see all of our centers glowing with light. Each center in balance. We are happy, joyous, prosperous, skilled, creative. We are all these things. We are leaders. We are writers. We are great parents. Anything that we are, we do well now because the presence fills us and guides us on how to do more. And we choose to take this to the world. So Father, Mother, God, guide us in our every means to take this to the world. No more, we say, to this world that was, and instead we invite the real world to come forward. Let's stick together as a unit to confirm only God's presence, to affirm only God's presence, to live only God's presence. Say no to the hurts and negatives and things of this world, to lacking concepts, limiting concepts. Yes, only to good. I choose to have a God mind, a good mind, a God life, a good life. And I will not have that if I cave to any of the past compulsions. I choose to be and love who I really am and lovingly release all that I am not. And so it is. Please take a few grounded, slow, centering breaths. Take a moment. Reflect back what we've covered, what made sense, what most needs to be integrated by you, whatever it might be, any part or all of it. Wonderful. Commitment to bring our real selves into this world. And it's how we become healthy people, real people. And remember, it's saying no to anything that isn't supporting that. It's very important to have that peace, that capability, that strength, that courage, actually. And all else, remember, is the addictive world. If we forget who we are, we feel a sense of emptiness, and then we will reach out in the world as follows: to blame others for your emptiness, or to grab them to pull in to fill your emptiness, and they cannot. And that's the lead to all addictions. Emptiness, and then grasping for things to replace or numb us from that emptiness. And none of those things can do so. So we change our relationship with these things of this world today. Please take hold of your tithes and love offerings and hold them.